Well, here we go. It's wide open. We got 1 day and 35 food plots. It's go time.
But the thing on that is, understand when you need your farm to perform. I mean,
That's right.
obviously we want to be great all year,
Yep.
but understand when you need your farm to perform in order to kill or to have an encounter with that
That's
deer
right.
that you're targeting.
Yep.
You know, that's very. People ask me all the time, what's the best thing to plant? Well, clover's probably the best thing to plant if you want something that's very versatile. But you need to understand what deer are you targeting, and if you're trying to target a specific deer, you need to know everything about the time frame he's there and what blends are going to perform the best. And I know we all do a variety because we're hunting the full season, but we've usually always got 1 or 2 deer in mind that we're after.
But we set our properties up to perform ideally throughout the year.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
like that's why we're planting all these different things like Bachelor Pad, Velvet Plus, then it may be, you know, Sweet Greens or whatever it is. But they're staggered, right? So like this thing may be really good in the early season. Hey, maybe I can get in there and kill him in the early season. Okay, I didn't kill him in the early season. We're not just done. Right. Now it's okay, well this still performs really well in the late season.
right.
Maybe I can get in there now and kill him in the late season. And so I think that's a big thing too, especially if you have bigger properties, is setting them up to perform throughout the year.
Have diversity.
Yeah, and
See,
that's one thing too that I think is a huge misconception when you look at hunting a farm or how the farm hunts, is because they see deer on their farm, say early season in velvet, and I've had a lot of people tell me, man, my farm's loaded up with deer, I've seen them all in velvet and all this stuff, but and then come October, those deer aren't there. Those deer aren't there.
Somebody else that had a better
So
opportunity.
if that is the case on anyone that's listening to property, one thing to note is, let's figure out how I can get the deer there when it's legal to shoot them and legal to hunt them.
Yeah.
Because and if maybe you need to throw a small summer plot in there to get that deer summer in there and be able to hunt a wide variety of
And
deer
I think
in the fall.
That goes right into, like, one thing I learned from this table last year is that, you know, Blair, and he was very adamant talking about, you take a piece of property and you go to blank slate of this table, and then you come back with lush. Well, there's a stretch there that they walk out, it's like, I can't find food anywhere.
Right.
Well, if they move over to their plan B, why come back? If plan B was established, why come back? And so, you know, I bought into, it's tough out here. We've talked about it on test grounds. We deal with a lot of different weeds, coffee weeds, all this stuff, and I'm constantly battling. I'm learning. I mean, like I said, I would never have claimed to be expert at it. And so I committed to this year. I said, you know what, I'm gonna grow, like you were saying, you were like, focus on one thing and try to figure it out, and then that'll allow you to be better at multiple plots. So I committed to the airstrip. I said, I'm gonna grow clover. Like, if I can figure out what I have to spray, I'm constantly calling y'all like, hey, what can I spray on this? Hey, here's the weed. But it's not pretty right now. It is very rough looking.
You just need to get the grass off, and by getting this grass off, by killing this grass, it will quit taking in the moisture out of the ground, and it'll help the clover out.
Yeah.
Okay? But then you just want to continually try to make it a little better. Okay?
So really, by me clipping it, I'm doing more harm there. I should have just sprayed to start with.
It's okay that you clipped it to start with, because here's the deal. This grass is probably pretty tall.
Yeah.
So now you've made it easier to kill with your chemical rate. But what you don't need to do is you don't need to wait 2 more weeks and come out and spray it.
Right.
You need to spray it pretty quickly.
Yep.
Okay? And you'll kill this, and then that'll start to protect that. And then I wouldn't cut I wouldn't cut it anymore until you start getting either some good rain, or it really starts to cool off. Okay?
The plan would work, coming in and basically go ignite or a big river.
Absolutely.
Back onto it, drill it in, broadcast, whatever the case, right into it, and then by this time next year, I'm gonna look like a clover farm.
Yeah, that's right. And when you kill this grass off, you're gonna notice there's just gonna be gaps.
Right.
Okay. So you're gonna drill that in. That clover's put out tons of nitrogen, so it's gonna help that seed perform. And there's other clover in it, and it's just gonna boost it all. And you will have varieties in this blend again. And then when it comes out and grows next spring, it's going to prevent more of this grass from growing.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, that's what we've said all along. I think one of the misconceptions are, you know, like you do everything right and you expect to come out here springs like, oh man, it's all lush. It's not the case. It's a process to roll it to where it's all clover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Watch this. So when I pull this back, okay, you think it's dry, and it is dry, but you see that's clumping together. And anytime you got mud or dirt that's clumping together, it's got moisture in it. If there's no moisture, it won't clump, okay? So that's the benefit of why in a drought, your clover can save you, and it can give you something to hunt over, because you're not exposing this soil and redoing everything, and it's actually holding some moisture. And I just grabbed the top. Man,
That's
if
right.
you go down, you know, if you go
2
down,
inches.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a
or
lot of
even
moisture.
10 to 12 inches,
Yeah.
there's going to be a lot more moisture.
Yep.
But no, you're off to a great start, and that's what everybody needs to know. This is a great example that everybody needs to understand. There is nothing wrong with this, and the last thing that you need to do is to rip this up and do it over, because if you did, you just wasted a ton of money.
And it is by no means right now pretty.
Yeah, no, it's not pretty. But again, you know, July is a hard time to walk out to a clover field and go, man, this is beautiful. I mean, that's your hard time. If it looks beautiful in July, you can bank on it. You will kill 2 good deer on that field that winter, because it's just a hard time. But the other thing, Cody, is your goal before you hit a frost here, and I know you guys don't get just a ton of this far south, but you want this clover to try to be knee high going into the cold weather, okay?
Gotcha.
You can do that with some 0-0-60.
So would you go, obviously cleft, come in, spray.
Yeah.
That's step 1.
Yeah.
And then do I need to try to time a rain and do the 0-0-60?
Yeah, and push that back until we start getting closer to fall.
Gotcha.
Because here's the deal, clover grows in the spring and the fall.
Yep.
Okay? So when the nights start getting back down in the, you know, the low 60s consistently, you know, when it starts getting down in the 60s, especially 50s, that clover is going to start growing again. That's when you want to put your 0-0-60
Gotcha.
out.
Well, good deal. Well, we're off to a good start.
But there is nothing wrong with this. And I mean, this is actually a better start than I kind of anticipated. You're a little bit of a hard critic on yourself, you know. I mean,
Well, I mean, I run with a tough crowd too.
I know. But this actually.
Something to live for. Something to live for. You can tear me down, but I'm gonna stick around. Something to live for.
But one thing that when you start talking about clover is it's not a 1-year process.
Right.
It's
No.
not going to happen.
Yeah.
And we actually went out there and looked at it, and there's a lot of clover, but it's looking rough. I'm going to have to spray it, and we're coming up with a plan on it. But I do feel like it is headed in the right direction for next year,
Yeah.
where that is going to be 5 acres that we're not having to focus on.
right.
We may have to spray it, may have to clip it, but that's 5 acres that a deer at all times knows they can come out
come there
there
and eat.
and they got food at all times.
Clover is one of your it's your most economical, in my mind, thing to plant, because not only is it pretty inexpensive, okay, it's also going to grow for, if you take care of it, at least 4 or 5 years. That's even here in the South.
Yeah.
You might get more than that, you know, in the Midwest. The other thing is it's going to allow you to feed a deer about 10 months a year and reduce a lot of work that you have to put in that plot, and you know, where you can work on other areas.
Yep.
Here's the only catch, if there's a catch. It's just like building a house. It takes time to get the clover built, and it kind of looks rough for a little while.
Yeah.
But the last thing that you need to do is go and just start over.
Yep.
Because every time you start over, you're making another year process.
Which
Because
is what I was doing. I was giving up too quick.
right. For
And then like, hey, it didn't work clean slated,
Yep.
rather than pushing through the spotty times.
Yes,
You know?
and just to cut to the chase, plant your clover, and we're talking about a white clover such
Yep.
as Ladino, you know, and before I say this, our backwoods blends matters,
Yep.
okay? They are bigger leafed, thicker stems, they're just a better clover.
Yep.
I can't get into the science of why, but I can just tell you I have planted a lot of clover in my life, and my backwood wildlife product clover looks amazing. Even right now in the end of June, it looks great. But go into, put your time in, work those, work your fields, plant your clover with other blends so that it protects it, okay? Go through that hunting season, let those cereal grains that's in with that blend head out, but before the spring gets there in March, February, March, depending on where you are, make sure you go back and just buy a straight backwoods Ladino blend, okay? And put about 8 to 10 more pounds in that. If you will do that, if you will just do those 2 steps right there, you are off to the races with some really good clover.
You're talking about broadcasting 8 to 10 pounds to the acre.
Just walk out there with a little $10 spreader if you want to from Lowe's or whatever. Says Scott's on the side, you know, I got like 12 of them, you know. Just walk out there, broadcast it. It's great to do it in the Midwest if you're going to get a heavy frost, you know, that's called frost seeding. But here's the deal. It works in the South too, because usually we're getting rains that time of year. And if you'll just walk out there ahead of the rain and you've got some structure already kind of growing in that field, you're not going to get that seed to run off. It's going to go in. And I'm telling you, come May, and that's when by Memorial Weekend, that clover needs to look pretty good, okay? If you look at it end of March and it's still kind of small, go hit it with some 0-0-60. I want to be really clear when I say that. Don't go buy triple 13. Don't go buy triple 20. 0-0-60 or potash, okay? I'll tell you, I go to my local co-op, I take corn bags left over where I fed some corn, you know, in the fall, and I fill about 15 of them bags up with a scoop, okay? Because that's the only place in my area that I can get 0-0-60. And I can tell you, that will make clover scream.
Really?
And that's all it takes. It's not that hard. I have still not mowed one clover field this year yet. It's June the 30th, right?
Yep.
And my clover fields look really good. Now, I've sprayed them 3 times, some of them, with different chemicals. But I have not mowed them at all, okay? Spraying's pretty cheap when you ain't got to crank up a tractor and buy a $4,000 bush hog and all that stuff, right?
And not to mention, so basically, I remember you called me, and so you shot a pretty deer in Illinois. Big. And of course, we're going to dive into the hunt now. I'm going to let you tee it up. But without clover, your season probably looks totally different.
Man, I planted so many blends last year in a lot of states, okay? 3 or 4 states. And had I not had clover already established, I'd had a lot more tag sandwiches. You know what I'm saying? I only hunted the deer that I killed one afternoon.
All right, so here's the skinny. It's we're back in Illinois, and on my farm, and we're trying to catch that mid-November action. Just got back up here. Gonna be self-filming this afternoon. My boy Carl's on his way, but I'm not sure when will get here, and I don't think he's gonna make it in time before the afternoon hunt is over. But slight breeze today. The winds have moved around to the southeast, so we're gonna hunt a different deer this afternoon just because the winds aren't right to hunt the deer that we call Fergie. So I'm gonna hunt a deer that I call R2. But anyhow, we're easing in now. We got the Elite Omnia in hand, and we're ready to fling one of these slick trick broadheads at them. But we're going through right here. This access point is really good. So there's a road kind of cut low through the timber. So behind me, as you can see, I stopped here in the shade so you can see, behind me is a big field, CRP field, and then we've got a food plot over here that the deer are hitting. It's backwoods wildlife products. It's alpha buck and it's clover. And then we threw some radishes in there as well, but they got on them pretty hard and ate them up because we didn't get much rain. But as you can see down there in the timber, that's a big timber draw down there. And what the deer do is they'll go over there and they'll bed on that far ridge top over there. You got a south facing slope here, and then right across on the other side of this CRP field where our food plot is, there's another south facing slope. So you're sandwiched in between 2 south facing slopes here, and so the deer bed tight, and it just puts them in this CRP field quite a bit. It's a great spot. I love this road to get into. So you can see right up there on the hill, right up there on the hill is our old homemade box blind. Let's see if we can go run into one. Looking for R2, baby. Here we come. Oh, there's a deer coming. We got a deer coming out there. he's coming. He's breaking. There's more blood right here, looks good. A little more getting in this bottom now. There's some on this side of this limb. It's good. See if we see him. There's some more. There's some more down here. Oh, dude, there he is. There he is. Heck yeah. Yes. Yes, we just cashed in Illinois, baby. Yes, let's go get him. Look at that, look at that. Look at that right there. Tell me that ain't a tank of one. Tell me that ain't a tank of one right there. I'm going to pull him out when we get to him a little bit, but man, look at that. Deer we call R2. Fully mature, 5.5-year-old Illinois whitetail here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Got a little kicker there. Tried to split right here. Hey, on a drought year, I'll take it, baby. That's a heck of a deer.
I was focused on another deer all year over Clover, and I was hunting morning and afternoon and seeing a lot of deer. But the wind shifted. I got an east wind. I don't normally set anything up for an east wind, and that's another thing that people need to key in on is when you're hunting, think of setting up a trap. Okay, whether it's 30 acres or 3,000 acres, set you up a trap to where you can go in and see deer and get in and out and have a chance to harvest a deer. That's what the game is about to me, and that's what I love. But I hunted this plot one afternoon. Okay, he was on trail camera. I knew he was there. I was focused on another deer, but I had an east wind. I couldn't hunt my other west wind setup that I was going to hunt. And I thought, you know what? I'm going over there and I'm going to hunt this deer.
Yep.
And I was actually torn because I have two fields that are only about 300 yards apart, okay? And they're both in clover, and they both lead to some type of other field.
Right.
Well, he was on both of them. But I thought, I'm going to pull cameras and I'm going to check. And I looked at the one he was on the most. And the one he was on the most was what I call the road box. It's literally an old mail route road that runs through the edge of the timber and all that. And I went right in. I sat there 45 minutes. 6-year-old deer walks out. He, nudges some other bucks around. And I watch him come in from 400 yards out to 28 yards. And he didn't stop and eat one thing until he got to that clover field.
And went to feed him.
Went to feed him.
That's the last
And he was with a doe too. But he kept his distance off her. And he...
Which if he'd have been wanting radishes or turnips, he'd have been on somebody else's because
Man.
you didn't have nothing.
and trust me, there was radishes and turnips planted within 20 yards of where that stand was. But guess what?
No
They
water.
weren't there.
No water. So
Yep.
there was none there. That clover field, I'll tell you exactly, because I talked about it last year. I killed a big deer there several years ago, 2019. I put that field in 2019. And all I've done is add a little clover here and there to it.
Yep.
I've never ripped it up. I've mowed it about 2 times a year. I've kept it sprayed, fertilized. I really haven't fertilized it every year. And I'm ashamed to say I should have.
Yeah.
But I really haven't fertilized that field every year because I've been focused on other fields.
Yeah.
But it goes back to show if you get some clover fields established, even though you might be more focused on some other fields, hey man, when all bets are on and you have other problems, that core field that you got established 5 years ago is money. And it was that day.
And it's a total different. You go in there for that recovery. That's a total different feeling because you're like, man, I didn't make the right calls this year, but 4 years ago I did.
That's exactly right.